Hi, everybody. This is a video on, actually, let me back up one slide or two. This is a video on chanting the name of the medicine Buddha, which in the Korean Buddhist tradition is Yaksa Yorae Bul. And then let me move myself up here a little bit. And then see, this is Yaksa Yorae Bul is the pronunciation. And I'm going to make myself smaller now. Try to. There we go. Yaksa, this is the Hanja or the Chinese characters, Yorae Bul. So this means medicine master Tathagata Yorae Buddha. And that's a traditional way of chanting the name of the medicine Buddha in the Korean Buddhist tradition. And this is how it's spelled out in the native Korean script of Hangul. Now, Yaksa Yorae Bul. And so that is the focus of this video is on how to do this kind of chanting. Now, before going any further, I just want to take a few minutes to talk about this kind of chanting. This is a very popular form of practice among Korean Buddhists called Junggun. Junggun, and this is from an interesting book that was written in Korea almost 100 years ago at the beginning of the 20th century in order to make Buddhist practices more widely available and more easily available to the average lay Buddhist who didn't have any monastic training or possibly has very limited access to temples or monks and nuns and just could on their own pick up and read this manual and be much more informed about how to do these practices. And so this is the definition that they give in this book of this kind of practice, Junggung, which so this is what it says. It literally translates along the lines of. And so when something says literally translate along the lines of, it means it's not really a literal translation, but it gives you the gist of what the meaning is. Sincere effort. Junggun, sincere effort. However, in a ritual context, that is in the context of practice, and you shouldn't get too hung up on the word ritual. A lot of Western Buddhists react to the word ritual almost the way that a vampire reacts to garlic. But a ritual really means a practice in which something happens, as opposed to a ceremony, which is just commemorating something that has already happened. So like when you graduate from school, you don't automatically gain knowledge from the graduation ceremony, and that's why a graduation ceremony is just that. You've already learned what it is, you have accomplished what it is that's now being commemorated. In a ritual, something actually happens. You feel something, yeah. So there's something going on. It's a practice where, well, anyway, so in a ritual context, that is in the context of practice, the Junggun almost exclusively refers to the practice of reciting the name of a Buddha or Bodhisattva out loud, often communally with a rhythm kept by the Moktak. So one thing, it doesn't have to be out loud, and I'm going to talk about that at the end of this video, that you can do this kind of practice silently as part of sitting meditation. And then elsewhere in the same essential compendium for Buddhists, it says a Junggun is a sustained, repetitious chant of a Buddha or Bodhisattva's name. All right. And then if you want to get into what it literally means, Jung means clear, bright, brilliant, essence, energy, spirit, pure, unmixed, concentrated. There's lots of different kind of meanings and connotations. I prefer bright. And gun means diligent, attentive, hardworking. We can just say diligent or diligence. So bright diligence, a diligence, an effort, a strong effort that is very bright. So it's not a grim. It's not like it is a, one could even say a joyful effort, which is actually the fourth paramita, if you want to get all Buddhist about it. And then I'm not going to click on any of these links, but what I've done is I've gone to good old YouTube and I found many examples of Korean Buddhists doing this kind of Junggun practice in honor of various Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So here's if you click on this link, this will take you to a YouTube video of people chanting Kwanseum Bosal, Kwanseum Bosal, Kwanseum Bosal, Kwanseum Bosal, Kwanseum Bosal, over and over again. If you click on this link, Jijang Bosal, who is Chitigarba or Jizo, this is the Korean pronunciation of the Bodhisattva who is often associated with death and dying and the afterlife. This is the Bodhisattva who helps people in the transition from one lifetime to the next. Muntsu Bosal, which is the Korean name of Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of wisdom. This is a group of people chanting Muntsu Bosal. This link is to a video of people chanting Bohyun Bosal. Bohyun Bosal is the Korean name of Samantabhadra Bodhisattva. Here's a video of people chanting to say, oh yeah, Miruk Junbul. So often in this type of chanting, a special name of the Buddha or Bodhisattva is used. So Miruk Junbul means Maitreya, honored Buddha. And this is a group of Korean Buddhists chanting Miruk Junbul, Miruk Junbul, Miruk Junbul, Miruk Junbul. And of course, here's a group of people in this video chanting to Shakyamuni Buddha, the historical Buddha. Soga Muni Bul, Soga Muni Bul. And Koreans also do this kind of practice in honor of the traditional spirits, gods, and goddesses who were honored and revered in Korea for thousands of years before the Buddhists came along, such as the mountain god, also known as Sangwang Daishin, which this literally means mountain ruler, great spirit, Sanwang Daishin. And so that's what they're chanting in this video. Sanwang Daishin, Sangwang Daishin, Sanwang Daishin. And then here's another video of people chanting to the 7 stars of the Big Dipper. And their name is Chirwan Songgun, which means the 7 original star rulers. Okay, so this is a kind of practice. It is not just one practice, but what I'm going to talk about in this video is Yaksa Yorae Bul chanting, which, as the name implies, primarily consists of chanting Yaksa Yorae Bul, Yaksa Yorae Bul. Now, you've heard me already in the course of this video several times kind of use this tune for chanting these various names. And so now I'm going to back up to the very first slide. And I'm going to, as best as I can, chant this name. And I'm just going to go through the tune that's used in chanting this name, and then you can use for any of these other names. So here it is. Yaksa Yorae Bul, 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 Yaksa Yorae Bul. And so that is the tune that Zen Master Sung San taught to his students for doing this kind of chanting. So Zen Master Sung San focused on 4 actually types of Junggun practice. Kwanseum Bosal chanting, which is the most commonly encountered type of this practice among Zen Master Sung San's Dharma descendants, people who practice in his lineage. Jijang Bosal, and then Sogamuni Bul, and then of course also Amita Buddha. Many people associate repeating the name of Buddha or Bodhisattva almost exclusively or even exclusively with Amitabha or Amita Bul. And so, but there's lots of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and even pre-Buddhist deities who are honored in this way with this kind of chanting. Okay, so let me demonstrate. I'm going to do this several times in this video. Let me demonstrate the tune one more time, and I'm going to count it this time because this is one of the uses of the tunes, okay, is to keep track. Yaksa Yorae Bul, 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 Yaksa Yorae Bul. And so the tune repeats after the name has been chanted 8 times. And so that is not a hard and fast rule. Now, this is the tune that Zen Master Sung San taught to his students, and it is the tune that is almost always used by people who practice in Zen Master Sung San's lineage. If you click on any of the links that I showed on that other slide, where you should have people who are chanting Muntsu Bosal, Bohyun Bosal, Sogamoni Bul, and all these other, and I'll also have another slide a little later on in this video with links to people chanting Yaksa Yorae Bul, Korean Buddhists chanting Yaksa Yorae Bul, and they use different tunes, and sometimes they really don't use a repeating tune. They just kind of have a sing-songy. I don't know if it's, but and actually Korean Buddhists are kind of famous for having lots of different styles of chanting, and so if you go to different parts of Korea, people will have somewhat different. Of course, in different parts of Korea, people have different accents already, the way they speak. And also, different parts of Korea, people will have different styles of chanting. And, that's just the way Korean Buddhists are. But what Zen Master Sung San, my teacher's teacher, what he taught, and therefore what I learned from my teacher, Zen Master Daegak, was this particular tune. And so the tune serves 2 purposes, or maybe more than 2, but at least 2 that are very, very practical. One is to keep everybody together. So when you're doing this with a group of people, everybody should be chanting the same tune. And then the other thing that you can do is you can use this tune to help you to keep count. And so I'm going to demonstrate that now. Yet again, I'm going to chant a Yaksa Yorae Bul, but this time I'm going to go through the tune twice. And I'm just going to count, instead of counting each repetition of the name, I'm going to count each repetition of the tune. Okay, so here it is. Yaksa Yorae Bul, 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 Yaksa Yorae Bul. So that was 16 times around. And so if you learn this little tune, which I would highly recommend, then you can use that to keep track if you're doing this practice on your own, or if you ever end up in a situation where you're practicing with a group of people and you are in charge of leading the chanting, then you are also the person who is supposed to keep track of how many times you've been chanting. So one common way of doing this is that you will recite the name, whichever name it is that you're chanting, 108 times or some other number of times. And everyone else who is chanting is assuming that someone is keeping track. And if that happens to be you, then if your group is chanting Yaksa Yorae Bul or Kwanseum Bosal or Jijang Bosal or whatever it is, 108 times, well, what's 108 divided by 8? Turns out that it's 13 and a half. And so, if you've ever chanted with a group of people who are trained in Zen Master Sung San's style, then you may have noticed that at the end of the repetition, it ends somewhat abruptly, and that's because you only go through the tune halfway. And I'll kind of demonstrate that. You'll see one way of doing that. Actually, so now I should move on to look at this. So this is a more fully fleshed out version of Yaksa Yorae Bul chanting. Generally speaking, when this kind of chanting, when this Junggun style of chanting is done, you don't just recite the name. There's a bit of a preamble. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines of chanting before you get here. See here, this is Yaksa Yorae Bul 108 times. Okay, so this is one way of doing this kind of chanting, and I'll go over what's in these 5 lines up here, and then usually there's something that's chanted at the end. And so in this particular version of Yaksa Yorae Bul, what you have is first there is a line that is paying homage to referring to the medicine Buddha. It says, homage to the East Direction Medicine Master Lapis Lazuli Radiance Buddha, which is, this is taken right from the Medicine Buddha Sutra. This is one way of referring to the Medicine Buddha, beginning with, well, it's actually not taken right from there. Okay, so the Eastern Direction, this is stated in the Medicine Buddha Sutra that the Medicine Buddha's Pure Land is somewhere off in the east. Yaksa Yorae Guang, this is Medicine Master Lapis Lazuli Radiance, okay? And that is right from the Medicine Buddha Sutra. And then Bul, Medicine Buddha Sutra doesn't actually refer to the Medicine Buddha this way directly. I may or may not talk about that more in this, but it's based upon the wording that is used in the Medicine Buddha Sutra. Also mentioned in the Medicine Buddha Sutra is that there are 2 primary disciples of the Medicine Buddha who reside in the Medicine Buddha's Pure Land with him. There's lots of other great bodhisattvas and beings, fortunate beings, who reside in the Medicine Buddha's Pure Land. The chief among all of these, his 2 primary disciples are Ilguan Byonjo Bosa, which means Sun, Radiance, Universal Illumination Bodhisattva, and Wolguang Byonjo Bosa, which is Moon, Radiance, Universal Illumination Bodhisattva. And each of these is very clearly explicitly stated in the Medicine Buddha Sutra that these 2 bodhisattvas will be the first in line to become fully enlightened Buddhas after the parinirvana of the Medicine Buddha himself. And so Bucho means next Buddha. And then Jua and U means on the left and the right. So these disciples are seated on the left and the right of the Medicine Buddha, or at least this is the way they're portrayed here in this chant. And then this 5th line, so these 4th line, yeah, oh yeah, so 1, 2, 3. First line refers to the Medicine Buddha. 2nd and 3rd lines refer to the chief disciples of the Medicine Buddha. 4th line refers again to the Medicine Buddha, referring again to the Medicine Buddha and to his Pure Land, which actually has a name that is not spelled out in the Medicine Buddha Sutra, but it is the Eastern Direction Full Moon Pure Land. And the Namu always means homage. Namu, or homage, or bow to, or Zen Master Sun San preferred the translation become one with, which is one way of putting it. Namu Dongban, Eastern Direction, Manwo, Full Moon, Sege, Pure Land. This doesn't literally mean Pure Land, but that's one way of referring to a Pure Land, or a Buddha land, or a Buddha realm. Shibi is 12, Sangwon, great or supreme vows. And so this is another line referring to the Medicine Buddha. One more line referring to the Medicine Buddha. This line does have the name of the Medicine Buddha as it is repeated over and over again, at least 30 times, I believe, in the Medicine Buddha Sutra, which is Yaksa Yorae Yorae. Okay, Yaksa Yorae Yorae literally means medicine master, lapis lazuli, radiance, tathagata. And then Bul is added on at the end in the chant. This is the traditional way of putting this in there in the chant, although this is not actually in the Medicine Buddha Sutra. And then you get to Yaksa Yorae Bul, and it's repeated over and over again. And then after that, there is the mantra for inviting the 8 types of heavenly beings, the Jo, Chung, Pa, Bu, Jinon. Jinon means mantra. And that's Om Salba Dibaniga Anadi Sabaha. That's repeated 8 times in honor of the 8 types of heavenly beings who are portrayed as being present and playing a prominent role in the audience. Although at one point at the very end of the Medicine Buddha Sutra, one of these 8 types of heavenly beings, the Yakshas, in particular a group of Yaksha Dejangs, great Yaksha generals, step forth and actually have a important role at the end of the Medicine Buddha Sutra. Okay, and then the sutra ends, or not the sutra ends, the chant ends, and this is a typical way all Jungun chanting has some sort of ending verse, and this is a I did this translation myself. It's uh, uh, I would encourage people to look at the original, which I'll have on the final version of these slides when I put up this video. But this is in my opinion, a pretty good translation, and it's easier to chant than the original Sino-Korean, or not chant, just to state. The Medicine Buddha guides all sentient beings with his 12 great vows. His heart is completely filled only with compassion. The roots of illness and inverted views in ordinary beings are very deep. If we do not meet the Medicine Buddha, it is very difficult to cut through the entangling net of our own wrongdoing. Therefore, we single-mindedly take refuge in and prostrate to the Medicine Buddha. Okay, now what's on the next slide? Okay, so the next slide, and I'll get back to this in a minute. The next slide does have several examples of Korean Buddhists doing this kind of chanting. Not exactly the way that I have it here, but very close. And I think there'll be time to go over some of the differences. And then there's even, this is a version of people chanting the Medicine Buddha's name, the same name, but in Mandarin. So the Mandarin pronunciation is different. Nan Wu Ya. Yeah, well, I won't attempt to do the Mandarin. But before going any further, kind of the main point of this video is I'm going to go through this chant. And I am going to now I'm going to make use of the tune to keep tracks, to do 108 times. And I'm just going to give you an idea of what this sounds like and how you can do this practice on your own, or what it might be like if you were to do it with a group of people, either online or in person. And so without any further ado, I'm now going to do this as a practice. I'm going to do this live. And I want to encourage people to not be too not to be too hung up on your own voice. I'm going to try not to be too hung up on my own voice. I can get by okay chanting. I don't have a beautiful chanting voice by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's important for people to be able to do chanting practice without getting particularly hung up on the sound of you should listen to your voice. Zen Master Sung San always taught that when you're chanting with a group of people, you should listen to your own voice. You should be able to hear and listen to the voice of each individual person that you're chanting with, and you should also hear the voice that is made together by everyone who's chanting. When you're chanting by yourself, it's just you. But I think chanting is definitely a practice that everyone can do on their own, even by yourself, which I'm going to do right now, and recording it and sharing it with you. Okay, so and when I do this, I'm gonna do this these lines, the preamble, the beginning lines of a Jungun chant are often done very slowly with kind of an elaborate tune. I'm going to do it relatively not fast, but without a long, slow, elaborate tune. Okay, all right. Namu Dongbang Yaksa Yeorae Bul. Namu Chwabu Choil Gwangbyon Jobo-san. Namu Ubu Chowo Gwangbyon Jobo-san. Namu Dongbang Manwo Sege Shibi Sangwon. Yaksa Yeorae Bul, 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 Yaksa Yorae 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 Bul. Jochung Palbu Jinon Om Salba Niba Nika Anari Sabaha Om Salba Diba 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 Nika Anari Sabaha. The Medicine Buddha guides all sentient beings with his 12 great vows. His heart is completely filled only with compassion. The roots of illness and inverted views in ordinary beings are very deep. If we do not meet the Medicine Buddha it is very difficult to cut through the entangling net of our own wrongdoing. Therefore, we single-mindedly take refuge in and prostrate to the Medicine Buddha. Now, if you want to see some people who, generally speaking, sound better than I do, and in groups of people chanting together, here are 5 videos. One is 3 hours of chanting. I'm going to, let's just get a look. I have to get out of slideshow mode, I think, in order to be able to make these links live. Okay.
나무 동방 약사 유리 광불
Sorry, I just want to point out that I was pointing to the wrong line. Actually, it's he just chanted this line up here. Namu Dongbang Yaksa Yorae Bul. Okay, I'm going to go back to the video.
보처 일광변조
So here he just chanted this line, Namu Jibu Cho Il Guang Byung Jo Bo Sang. And so I'm gonna
나무 우보처 월광변조 보살 나무 동방만월세계 십이상원 약사 우리광열애불 약사 열애불 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 약사 열애불.
Okay, so that's one example. Well, let's look at, let's see, I think.
아무 동방하늘 세계 십이대원 약사 열애불 약사 열애불 약사 열애불 약사 열애.
So I'm going to play that again. And so in this version, this particular person who's chanting, the way he's doing it is he goes straight to this line, Namu Dongbang Manwo Sege Shipi Sangwon, homage to the east direction, full moon, pure land, 12 supreme vows. And then goes straight into Yaksa Yorae Bul chanting. Let me just play that again.
아무 동방하늘 세계 십이대원 약사 열애불 약사 열애불 약사 열애불 약사 열애불 약사 열애불 약사 열애불 약사 열애불.
Okay, and so on this slide, there are several other examples of Korean Buddhists doing this kind of chanting. So there's also a recording of, let's see what this sounds like. Don't remember. So that's quite pretty. A group of people chanting together. And it's, if you listen to Japanese Buddhist chanting and Korean Buddhist chanting and Chinese, that is Mandarin Buddhist chanting, you'll notice there's often quite a difference in the style. To my ear, Chinese Buddhist chanting is often more pretty and melodic. Japanese Buddhist chanting is often more, one could even say masculine and kind of martial sounding. And Korean Buddhist chanting is often somewhat in between, very rhythmic, and very strong in the way that Japanese Buddhist chanting is, but more melodic, also in the way that Chinese Buddhist chanting is. And that's just I don't know if anybody's ever done a meaningful comparative study of chanting in those three different countries. One thing that's interesting is that they're all chanting the same thing. They're just using their own pronunciation of the Chinese characters, and they're also using their own kind of style of chanting. But what the content, thing that's being chanted, is the same. This slide, which is still kind of in a very formative stage, is different examples of people doing Kwanzaa Bosal chanting, which if you have experience with any kind of Korean Buddhist chanting or any kind of experience with any groups or teachers who are in the lineage of Zen Master Seung San, then you're probably more familiar with Kwanzaa Bosal chanting than with, say, Yaksa Yeorae Bul chanting or any other kind of Junggun chanting. So I want to wrap this up at this point, but in wrapping up, talk about one very important topic, which is doing Yaksa Yeorae Bul chanting as a meditation practice. So chanting practice and silent sitting meditation practice are not necessarily two different things. They can be brought together. And this was actually the practice of Zen Master Seung San. His practice throughout his entire life, from the time he was a very young man, maybe 20 years old, throughout all of his life, was to chant the Great Dharani. Shinmyo Jangu Dedarani Namura Dana Dara Yaya Namakarya Baro Gije Sevaraya Moji Sadabaya Maha Sadabaya. And he would do that whenever he did sitting meditation practice. And he was doing it all the time when he was talking to people, when he was engaged in any kind of activity, even while asleep. He was always doing the Great Dharani. And so that's one traditional way of doing any kind of so sometimes, so the Great Dharani can be thought of as a mantra. And so when he was doing that practice, he was doing what some people would call a mantra practice silently. If you do Yaksa Yorae Bul chanting silently, some people will quibble over the definition of what's a mantra and what's not a mantra. As I showed previously on I can go to that slide. Let's see. Yeah, the definition of Junggun, or not the definition, but the practice of Junggun is a sustained, repetitious chant of the name of a Buddha or Bodhisattva. And what's a sustained, repetitious chant? Well, it's a mantra. Unless you want to get really technical about what is and what is not a mantra, which I don't generally do that. And so you can get yourself a mala. So I'm wearing a mala around my neck. This is a mala that my teacher Zen Master Daegak gave to me, and I always wear. Well, not always, but often. And but I also have a little wrist mala. So neck malas usually have 108 beads. Wrist malas are, in my opinion, much better for keeping track if you're doing any kind of a mantra or Junggun practice when you're sitting. And so you can do Yaksa Yorae Bul, and you don't have to use the preamble part and the after part. Although if you learn them by heart, you can easily incorporate them into your sitting meditation practice as well, and just do them all silently. And so you can count. And this is another reason to learn the tune. If you learn the count, if you learn the tune, then you can just keep track on your mala of how many times you repeat the tune. I can make myself a little bit bigger now. I'm showing. You can see on my little mala here, right? You could just count on your mala as you're sitting there silently. And you can do it very fast to yourself. And I'll do it, so I won't do it silently, but I'll do it very fast, so you can just barely hear it. Yaksa Yorae Bul, Yaksa. So that was 3 times, really fast. So if you want to, do Yaksa Yorae Bul 1,000 times a day, not a bad idea, not a bad practice. That's very doable. If you regularly practice sitting meditation for even 20 minutes, I think you could probably get it into 20 minutes. You could probably get it into even less than 20 minutes, depending upon how fast you go. You don't have to go fast. You don't have to be worried about how many times you do it. But I do highly recommend doing Yaksa Yorae Bul as, and I'm going to put it in air quotes because I don't want to, I don't want to get involved in what is a mantra and what isn't a mantra, but you can use Yaksa Yorae Bul as a silent mantra while you're doing sitting meditation. And I would actually recommend doing that as a part of your sitting practice. If you're, at all interested in the Medicine Buddha, and I assume if you're still watching this video at this time, that you are. So I am going to do a separate video on chanting the Medicine Buddha Dharani, which is in the Medicine Buddha Sutra. But that's it for this video on chanting Yaksa Yorae Bul. And thank you very much for listening. And I hope that this video helps you, encourages you to look into this practice, to do this practice, and that it is a benefit to you and that your practice benefits all beings. Thank you for listening.